Awesome. Hey, everybody, I'm Tiffany, and you found us at Wise Skies. This is a podcast that is going to be specifically about human design. And so if you've been hearing any of the material lately, you've heard me tease it. I have chill bumps even when I say that. This is my friend Leisha. Leisha, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. And Leisha and I are friends. We go back 20 plus years. We met at a wellness center that we were both working at. And we have a couple other friends that every couple of years we meet up with, and we always called each other lifers, right? And that was always sweet to me because we kept coming back around and finding each other in different circles of life, right? And so people that experience life together that you don't have to stay in close contact with, that you just kind of know are on the same page or same fractal, right? So Leisha and I then met up later at Lollapalooza. It was so weird. Like, I didn't know you were going to be there, right?
Yeah.
I was working, you were working for different companies. And I think, where did we see each other? In some cool place in art.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like in the food court near the smoothie thing or something like that. You know,
I had it way cooler than I was like in art second. Like,
yeah, it was totally VIP. So yeah, it was the VIP section for sure. No,
for sure. And then later we reconnected through the channel of human design. And I had been watching Leisha's Instagram channel, which is the Awareness Experiment, if you want to follow her there. And I was like, what is she doing? That's so cool. Like, it's so Wise Guys, I'm like, how do I not know this? Like, I got to get more. I'm thirsty for it, right? And so Leisha did my foundational session, and I didn't know how profound it was going to be. Like, I have tears and chill bumps and the whole thing. First of all, that I got to do it with Leisha, and then second of all, that it even crossed my path. I feel like it's such a special tool, but it's really it's so much more than a tool. It helps you, just like I felt like when I took my first astrology class. I felt like I could sink into my bones of who I really am instead of what the world had projected me to be, right? That's not making me special. Like, we all have that thing going on. So that was my introduction to human design. And guys, you guys know that I live a clean and sober vegetarian lifestyle, but I felt like I took a hit of acid. I was like, what happened here? I felt like we were on this like crazy music festival experience. Like, I feel like the veil got lifted and I got to see things for what they really were. The mechanics of myself and my not self and others, and how I relate to other people. She gave me so much in that foundational session. And so I wanted to bring her under the roof of Wise Skies, under the wing of Wise Skies, and she accepted. So I'm going to stop talking any second now. I just wanted to give you a little background about who Leisha is in my life, and how she came to be one of the intuitives on this Wise Council board of intuitives at Wise Skies. And so, because human design is so complex and beautiful, it's like this beautiful tapestry. I wanted to just start by Leisha sharing a little bit about, what it is, and maybe a little bit about your experiment. And then, guys, today on the podcast, we're going to go over the 4 aura types. This is a really easy introduction into it. And then we're going to tell you how it can get more intricate. So you're definitely going to get some juicy, goody tidbits out of this today. But then we'll be able to help you learn how to go further if you want, if it's correct for you to start your experiment, right? So Leisha, what's up? How did you get into human design? I don't even know the story.
That's funny. I love that you asked that, because it does just it's just so wonderful to talk about that moment for me. Well, it was interesting because I've always, been into all these, I guess, woo-woo kind of things, the esoteric, the spiritual, the metaphysical, and also the practical application of that, and like the relatable parts of that any human can resonate with. So I've always been into that and tried all different systems, explored and experimented with lots of different things that transformed a lot, right? So one day I was at work and we were looking at, this kind of, it it was like a chakra gauge almost software. And we were looking at this thing like, oh, I'm 40% out of whack in my heart center or whatever, and this person walked by, it was a friend, and she was like, oh yeah, that cool. Have you heard of human design? And I was like, no, like record scratch kind of thing, because I was like, I've heard of everything, right? Like I thought I'd heard of everything. And so I looked it up and I saw my aura type and I kind of was like, what is this? Like, I don't know what this is. So I finished the workday and like just literally instantly, kind of felt like the acid trip feeling, where I instantly got off work, started listening to podcasts, started, delving into it, doing my studies. And I mean, it definitely, I had the same experience of a transformational way of kind of lifting the veil and seeing exactly what is happening. Things that I'd always been kind of seeking to see, like feeling like there's something deeper, like this other system, is taking me to a certain point, but then I'm not feeling like I can dig any deeper with that, or I still have questions that it doesn't answer. And I just had this feeling there's got to be something deeper. And for me, that is the human design system, 100%. And so that was around 2.5 years ago. And as for my own experiment, I started right away. I started experimenting with my personal strategy and authority, which is different for each of us. And that's kind of what human design teaches us, is that it's not the same. There's not a one size homogenized and, one size fits all homogenized answer.
You just rhymed.
For all of us.
There's not a one size homogenized answer.
That does happen quite a bit. Epiphany with Tiffany. That was one of my other writes. But yes. And so, it really allowed me to see what I couldn't see before, what I tried to see, strived to see, but nothing else quite showed me all that I really wanted on every level, like locked in tight, solid and logical. So for my own experiment, I immediately started, trying out my strategy, my authority. It was very trippy kind of thing, because and they do call it kind of a trip. It's like we each have our unique trip in this life. In human design, that's kind of part of the language. And so my trip had always been just to like work hard, get the most done the fastest, do multiple things at once, never rest, and just do it all, be the best, smiling, all the things. And that was not, I could feel this as like, this is not the life I'm meant to lead. There's something more. And I'm getting, I started having health things show up, and more speeded up health things showing up. So yeah, I mean, I have experienced in the last 2.5 years, a lot of transformation, a lot of understanding that I see things a certain way, others see things a certain way, and really how can I embrace how I see it and how they see it when it's different or the same, and relax into life and just enjoy the show, enjoy this movie that we're in, and have the life that I'm here to have, and not the one that I was thinking I had to have. So yeah, I mean, it's affected my human design parenting, or my parenting style, my relationship, my friendships, who's in my life, where I am, and how I interact, like on every level.
And every time, every word, I'm like, chill bumps. I'm glad I'm like, I wish I could show you.
I need a sweater. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm glad you brought up the health thing, because that was kind of my experience too. It's like, if you, and I'm glad you brought up the kind of hit a wall thing. You didn't use that language. That's my language. It's like, I always felt like I hit a wall with certain things. And sometimes when you're going through all these things, when we go to yoga school, when we go to chakra school, when we go to all the classes, and you feel like this is the answer, and then you hit a wall, and that's a frustration, right? Because each one you think like, this is it, right? But really, Leisha and I had the best conversation the other day about, it's not hitting a wall, it's opening a door. And all of the tools, all of the resources are really working together to help you get through the next door, of your own trip, of your own design, of your own experiment with your precious human life, right? And so what I love about HD is that it's like blends so many of the traditions that we're all super interested in geeking out in. And so I wanted to kind of touch on that. So like, what is human design? Like, it's an impossible thing to answer. When I started my experiment, I was like a broadcast, like I had like a microphone around the world, like trying to not like trying to tell people, but I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. But I had no words around it. Like, how do you even describe what's going on right now? And so I asked Leisha to write an article, which she did, and I'll link to that for you guys that want to read about it, that are like more visual or need that kind of structure. I know I do because I'm quad left, which you'll learn about, right? But the idea here is like that human design, it is a system, and Leisha describes it as an operating manual, and it's very similar to like our astrology language. But she describes it also as a combination of astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, quantum physics, biogenetics, sacred geometry, math, and it's just an experiment in your own awareness. You don't have to know all those systems. This isn't like a school for learning all the systems. This is just you looking at your body graph and experimenting with it, right? And so, yeah, a reading's really important. But if you guys are like, what's my body graph? Like, I need to know this thing. I need to see it. You can go. Do you want to tell them where they can go for that so they can get oriented?
Yeah, and we will link it in the article as well, but you can go to mybodygraph.com is the one that I really like. And you can run your chart with your exact birth data is needed, for just like all of these things that we're looking at, and exact birth time as well. And so you can find out there your aura type, your strategy authority, your profile, your incarnation cross. And, just as a quick thing, I love how Tiffany said, like, I didn't have the language around it. It's like, not only is it hard to kind of just put into an elevator speech type of format, but it's also a unique language. It's considered the science of differentiation. And just like a lot of sciences, it has kind of its own language. So, a lot of times, like when I would first hear a word or even a type that, because my projector type, my type is projector. And, that kind of doesn't have a great, it's like, oh, I'm projecting all the, like, that doesn't have a great connotation around it in my head.
Don't want that one.
Yeah. What'd you say?
I don't want that one.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, no, I don't want to be a projector, but it doesn't mean the same as our, as our mother tongue of language that we use all the time when we say a projector. So it's just to note that like some of the words, and it's, in human design, don't just directly translate into what we would normally associate with those words. And it is a language that takes time to learn, if it's correct for you.
Right.
Always if it's correct for you.
I love it. I'm like, it's correct for me.
I already know. Yeah.
Okay, so that said, a really great place to start in human design is understanding your aura type. And so can you talk a little bit about what an aura type even is? Like, here's my aura and there's different types of them. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. So, before human design, I understood aura as, we all have it. We can, grow it, or, certain activities allow it to be healthy and expand it. Other activities can contract and have different impact on the aura, right? Mm-hmm. Through human design, though, what I learned is that there are different aura types. So there's not one, one size homogenized version for everyone. Our auras work differently. And, as I started looking at this and more importantly, experimenting with it, with how, my own aura was working, that showed me that, yes, of course, we're even just in our presence, it works differently without us saying anything or doing anything or even moving in the space. So the aura types are basically how our unique body, our vehicle, as they say in human design, our vehicle is meant to move through this life, how we are meant to operate, how we're designed to, navigate situations, make decisions, be around others, be in relationships, how we're meant to be in groups and things like that. So each of us have very detailed and precise differences in that area. But I love that, if nothing else, if you just experiment with looking at your type and then the resulting strategy that comes with that type, and then your authority, it could change, it can transform the life as well. So the aura types are, yeah, and they're also, it's not just the aura concept, it's also like, it really does go down to the DNA genetics level. And again, human design, you can go as top level or as deep as you want. For, you could study it for the rest of your life. You can keep going deeper, which I personally love, because I'm a dig down, down, down kind of person, literally in my design. So the 4 aura types, is there anything you wanted to add first, Tiffany, before?
No, I mean, just that there are 4 aura types. And so it's not like, I think for me, right where I am with it, it's like, okay, being able to experiment as that, whether you know somebody else's aura type or not, it helps you just guide yourself, right? So you're looking at your own red flags and not other people's red flags. You're like, oh, I noticed that about me. Another, I think before we go into the 4 types, another thing that you taught me is that before you get your foundational session, right? Like there's a lot of operating in what HD terms as not self. Okay. So if you get this and this makes sense to you and you're like, oh, I'm as excited about it, you might still be operating in the world with a lot of people that are in their not self, or what maybe you would call ego, or what you would call a past version of yourself, right? And so I just want to point that out too, that this can be a really awakening and fun experiment, and that we're also able to give other people grace, and have compassion, and they're operating from a different manual, so to speak. Just because your sun sign and your moon sign and your numerology sign and your Enneagram sign doesn't mean that everybody's operating from that place of awareness, or even as interested in that awareness, and so I just wanted to throw that out there, because I found that interesting, as I had a lot of questions for Leisha, right? So, all right, so there's 4 types, and I want you to, like, maybe, do you want to start with like the rarest of the rare, or do you want to start with the broadest of the broad? Because there's
I like starting with the biggest category.
Let's do
Does
it.
that feel okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so the biggest category, they're called generators and manifesting generators. Those are actually all generators. So, it's about half and half. 70% of humanity is a generator or manifesting generator. So the aura type of the generator works the same. So that's why that's considered one type, even though there's kind of 2 types with, 2 subtypes within that. They're all generators, and they have an open and enveloping aura. So it has no boundaries to it. It just kind of takes in everything around the person and the environment. And generators are here to work on what lights them up with their consistent life force energy. And there's different activations in the chart that determine where the types come from. So that's why, you look at your body graph, it's determined by different activations within that determine what your authority is and what your type is. So generators are here to know themselves and not get caught up in someone else's trip. And with that consistent life force energy, the way to know what is correct to use that life force energy on is to wait to respond to what life brings. Now, we're all conditioned, which, conditioned in human design like is a human design term, meaning just programmed. Again, it's no one's fault. It's mechanics. Like Tiffany said, it's not like people are aware that they are this and then didn't do it, on purpose. But generators are conditioned to be manifestors. So they're conditioned to, and that's a different type we'll talk about, that they're conditioned to initiate. We all are conditioned to be, to go create our own life, and you got to make it happen and just do it and all these things, right? But that's actually interrupting the flow of life. And so basically, like, they're here to respond, to wait for life to bring.
Oh, that just made so much sense when you said interrupting the flow of life. I'm like, sorry, life, because I initiated a lot, right? Like a lot.
We all have, and we've had varying success with it, right? Like we've all manifested, we've all initiated, we've all done these experiments and had times that it worked out. But the human design experiment does give us a way to look back at those and kind of assess through a different frame, like, well, did it really work out, or what did work out, and how do I know if that was the best what my life was supposed to be, because I pushed for that thing to happen. Well, I wasn't just waiting and letting this other thing come to me. So now I started this other sequence of events, right? That may be not the life for me. And you can feel that within you. And with generators, they're here to get satisfaction out of using that life force for what's correct for them, right? The satisfaction piece is huge for generators. If, and they're not here to initiate, overwork, work all the time, work on whatever, like all the time, because they know that they want to work, but it's like, no, only on what lights you up from your authority. When they do initiate or overwork, that leads to frustration. And so that's kind of the not self theme in the generator's life. It's, the signature is satisfaction, like, yeah, you're doing it right. And the not self theme is the frustration. The second part is projectors, or the second type is a projector. That's 20% of humans. They're a newer aura type.
Okay.
The second aura type. Yes. They're a newer aura type. So, that's a rabbit hole that you can go down with human design. But they have an aura that focuses and absorbs whoever's near them or their environment. So if you think of generators and manifesting generators, they're open and enveloping like a big warm hug. And projectors are like almost like a penetrating awareness, right? And so they're actually here, projector aura types are here to know the other. However, their strategy is going to navigate, when they're allowed to share what they see in the other, right? Or in the world or in the patterns. So their strategy
piece of advice, guys, like if you're a projector and this is new to you, like that is so significant, right? Like waiting to be invited to share your specific point of view is not normal to this world. What's normal to this world is like, listen, I've got something to say, and then nobody's listening to me and I don't feel seen and heard, and that means something about myself. And you know what I mean? Like there's all
now I'm bitter.
Right. Sorry to interrupt. I just think that's so important. If this is brand new to you, like, gosh, that's such a great piece of advice for the projectors out there. Yeah. Sorry.
Totally. And no, I it's huge because I'm a projector, and I definitely did not wait for the invitation, before human design. And there's kind of it's kind of hard to hear that. And it's even hard to hear wait to respond to life, because, we're so used to and conditioned by those who are also conditioned to just, if we don't do it, it's not going to happen. We create, we manifest, but actually, like, now is a time of awareness in humans. We have evolved for awareness, not for survival and money and resources and all this stuff. We're beyond that. So life is going to take care of us if we just let it, right? Which is and the way we let it is we follow our strategy. So for projectors, it's learning to wait for the invitation to share what they see. And when they wait for that invitation and are able to share that, it's like this feeling of success that is the signature for the projector of guiding those who are correct for them, just with a question. You can change a whole life with a good question, really, a whole trajectory. So again, projectors also are not here to initiate. They're not here to work all the time, or, even work 48-hour jobs like that. That may not be what is right if you're a projector. They're not here to work like a generator because they do not have consistent life force energy. And again, that's shown in the body graph. If they do initiate, work their butts off way too hard, like, try to work like a generator, because that's what we're all conditioned to be as projectors, it will lead to bitterness, which, honestly, I didn't really have a lot of connection with that word bitterness, but I had, I kind of looked it up. It's like, it's resentment, it's anger, it's kind of like, well, I did this and they didn't appreciate it. It's that feeling, which, hello, big poster child for that before human design. I hid it and I was, nice about it or whatever, but it's also like, and
then your body imploded on itself. And
right. Literally, like autoimmune conditions, right? Like, that's exactly that. Yeah, it leads to issues. And of course, for decades, our body, it may take a while for us to see these. So if you're 25, 30 and you're a projector and you're working 60 hours a week, never resting, it can take decades because our body can overcompensate for a lot. But eventually it will lead to burnout. because, and then it's almost like the road to recovery is tough, so if you're catching this before that age, yay for you. I didn't. So I get that too. Yeah. So their life force is inconsistent, and they need to learn to be very discerning by waiting for the invitation to know where the correct usage of that life force energy goes.
I want to stay here for a second, because this is the manifesting generator is my aura type. And so Leisha's aura type is the projector. And almost everybody in my life currently has a projector aura type. So I've been learning the nuances of that with my tribe of people. And one of the coolest things she taught me, it has to do with our life force energy, right? So manifesting generators, you were telling me it was like basically plugging in your phone. So it's like I have so much battery all day, and I use all my energy, I can manage my energy, right? I get really, I have a plan for the day based on my energy level. And so if that gets messed up along the way, I try to go with the flow. But the truth is I've managed my energy around that, and it kind of jerks my system around, right? And so, so these things come up, it's life. And I get to experiment with that. Oh, how am I feeling when plans change, right? Or how am I feeling when, well, my energy gets jacked up, because in the manifesting generators, they have a certain amount of energy all day. They unplug at night, they get recharged, they rest, they restore, they get up, and it's a new day. And we can just keep doing that like that. The projectors, as I understand, have a different way of managing their energy. And what you're talking about, especially if we're reaching any younger people, or whatever age you're at, it's like if you knew this about managing your energy differently, what a sense of relief that must be. Like, can you talk about like how projectors manage their energy differently?
Oh my gosh, Tiff, I have total chills just in the last part, because it's like the relaxation into, oh, that's what I am. I can rest every 3 hours. That's why I can't work all night, every night, like all these generators I'm working with, which is what I noticed years ago, in working environments. Like, how are they up every night working on this? And I would do that, and I would try that, and I would be bitter, right? Because then it wasn't correct in whatever form that bitterness showed up. So yes, I love thinking about the battery analogy, because like you were saying, generators, they have a battery every day, and just like with an Apple product or whatever, they say run the battery all the way down, then plug it in. So they literally should be almost literally, I guess, falling into bed like exhausted at the end of their energy expenditure for the day. Like, they need physical exercise, and there's a lot of nuances to that depending on the body graph specific to each person. But they need to fall into bed exhausted, and their battery gets fully recharged for the next day. They're ready to do all that again if they need to. It's amazing. Projectors, however, I think of it like it's a lifelong battery. So there's not a plug-in recharge necessarily. Like, if you use it all by age 45, then it's almost like you're really struggling, and you're going to have a lot of health stuff come up, because you haven't, your battery's like, there's this much left for the rest of your life. I mean, not in a doomsday kind of way, but just like that's kind of gives the visual of how that works. So it's really important to discern where your energy should go, and that it can be navigated by being invited. And that is very nuanced. But if I'm sharing, oh, I see this and I see this, well, I'm just using all my energy up. And instead, I just can sit back and watch and see all the things, and the correct people who are ready to be guided or want, see me in that way, will ask, or, will invite me. And so it's made a huge difference in just, literally the day to day, even,
And how you feel when somebody does ask you. Like, Leisha and I have a friend in common who's my best beekeeping friend. And she also has a projector aura type. I don't think she'd mind me sharing this. And so I like this example, because it helps you kind of see in your own relationship. So this particular friend of mine, because she knows so much more than I do about beekeeping, I cannot wait to talk to her. I have specific questions. So she's not initiating, she's a projector. I'm like, hey, I've got this question. What do you think about this? I know you've got a unique experience in this vast field of beekeeping. and she lights up, and we could do a whole 3-hour car ride. Like sometimes we'll drive to East Texas to go to the big place out there, and we could talk the whole time. And at the end of it, her biggest thing is that she feels seen. She feels appreciated. You know what I mean? Because can you imagine if she's just out there trying to spout her knowledge and nobody's listening? It's a very deflating experience for a projector. But if you've got somebody that's really into what you're doing, the end result is the manifesting generator gets some knowledge, right? And there's a sense of fulfillment, like we like to have, a sense of success in a way. And then on the projector side, they feel seen, acknowledged, appreciated, instead of just like, I'm trying to tell you something that you're not getting, you know, and that sense of bitterness that comes when you're sharing something that the people aren't getting, you know what I mean? And so that's one, I guess, example of interaction between the two aura types. I really wanted to talk about the battery because I think it's so critical, because we live in this world where you're supposed to go, go, go. And it's like, be more efficient and get up earlier and get the Peloton and get all of the things so that you can be more efficient. You know what I mean? And like have this 23-hour workday but then it's like have this. So I wonder who the 4-hour workday, if he's a projector, you know what I mean? Like that guy.
I've thought about that.
Right?
I've thought about that many times. He's got to be, you know, he's got to
like,
be, but we could look it up.
We could totally look it up. And I tried to do a 4-hour workday, and I'm like, okay, but
I'm bored.
Well, okay. And so for me, I've never been bored a day in my life.
No, yeah,
I'm an only child, and I'm really great at entertaining myself, right? But I'm not going to work a 4-hour workday to relax. I'm going to work a 4-hour workday so that I can go play hard and do more stuff and check out what's going on in my garden and live my life and be really tired. I was joking with Leisha because I'm like, as I'm in my deconditioning, as I'm learning about my own energy differently, I am more tired earlier, right? So whereas I used to stay up later and be like an all-night party girl, right? Like, and let's just keep going. Now I'm like 4:30. Y'all ready for dinner in bed? My projector friends are like, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
let's separate rooms.
Right? And the separate rooms thing is a whole other thing, you know?
Yeah.
And like briefly, when Alicia made a post about this too, about like sleeping in different rooms, I was like, oh, you know, because what's going on there? Would you talk about that with why you need the 12 feet of space? Like, can you explain that?
Yeah. So each of our aura, you know, they say it goes out 6 feet. And I mean, in human design, we use that number. And so if you have, you know, two people next to each other, that's 12 feet between you. If you're closer than 12 feet, then your auras are now creating a third aura being, kind of, which is your connection together. And that's a whole thing that can be looked at too. But when you're sleeping, you also, you're laying horizontal. And so your design actually changes a bit. And that's, again, a rabbit hole of human design we can go down. And so if if a projector is sleeping with a generator, you become more receptive as you sleep. And again, there's a lot to look at there. But if a projector who does not have a defined sacral, which is where the life force energy, the consistent life force energy of a generator comes from, is sleeping with a generator all night, and then the projector is working 50 hours and going and never resting all night, then they're sleeping with that sacral energy. And and we do not have a defined sacral. So we have inconsistent life force energy. We cannot rely on that in the same way a generator can. So what happens is anywhere that we are open, so I have an undefined sacral center, which is where the life force energy is. It not only means that's inconsistent for me, but it also means I'm amplifying any sacral energy of anyone that's defined sacral center around me. So like, for example, with Tiffany, if I'm around her, I might be even more energetic than Tiffany, even though she's the one with the defined sacral. So it's like, again, it's the awareness of that. I can go, okay, this is lighting me up. I was invited, boom, boom, boom. Okay, it's been about 3 hours. I've been going hard. I probably need to just working with my mechanics. Let me experiment with, I might need to pull back and kind of be in my own space. So it's the same thing at night. If we're amplifying all night, I think of it as, it's almost like this energy is in our body and is ricocheting around and never able to get out if we're sleeping with someone else who has anything different in their design than we do, which everyone does, period. No matter, I mean, like at every depth, there's so much depth. So if you're sleeping with someone else, you're amplifying all the things you are not that they have activated. And so then it's again, kind of, it's amplifying that not self, which is all the themes of, frustration and bitterness and overdoing it and overworking and then having health stuff. So yeah, and it's not that we wouldn't have frustration and bitterness and whatever in our life otherwise, but it's
exacerbating it. It's like,
oh yeah, and it's very reduced. Like it is very little of that once you start this experiment and start working within these mechanics.
So sleep in separate rooms, don't work normal jobs,
rest, lay down all the time.
Lay down all the time. Live your life, let things come to you, right? Like it's tricky.
Just let it come.
But
one thing I did it does create this almost like a transcendent effect at various points. And it's not like that happens the whole time, because there's, we're humans and there's different waves, of experience crashing over us. And things that happen and things that come to us. But it is this like relaxation into just like loosening the grip of something that's never been loosened before, just loosening it and letting it just be. I mean, it's indescribable almost, I wanted to mention too, what you were saying about the projector aura is like, it's penetrating. So like, if you think about, you kind of need to have someone ask you before like you're going to penetrate their aura basically. So that's helped me to remember that, because there's times that I'm like, oh, I can see so clearly what they should do. I want to say aloud what they should do. And then it's like learning to just be quiet. It's like, if you think as a projector, like it's just be quiet more, and that's not what we hear. It's like, I have a voice, I want to be heard, And it's like, yes, when invited and when it's correct, So yeah, I love the points you made about that and sleeping alone and being in your own aura. And you do become more sensitive to who you actually are. So now I've been sleeping alone, I have my own room. It's gone on a whole journey of evolution with that, started on the couch, Now I have my own room. And now, I mean, if we went on a vacation where there wasn't enough beds and I did end up sleeping with with my husband or something who is a manifesting generator as well, I mean, I won't sleep. And I'm way more sensitive now than I was before when I was doing it every day. So as these layers of like who I'm not, of all the conditioning strip away, I'm more who I am really underneath it, who I'm here to be, which is the activations as seen in the body graph. And so you do kind of become more sensitive when you're around what you aren't, So that's just an interesting part of the journey as well.
Right. I mean, and that's like that trial and error type of thing. It's like you, and we talk about that in astrology, guys. It's like, you learn what you want or your purpose by what you don't want. Some people, that's a perfect way of operating. Other people have different ways, but I'm really glad you brought that point up. If you get, so I want to ask you to the generators you said are 70% of humanity. How many percent are the projectors?
20%.
They're like 100% in my life. Are you sure?
I know, right? And I mean, it's funny you said that earlier, and I noted it because, of course, we've noticed that as we've been looking at different aura types of the loved ones in your life. And for me, like 95% of the people in my life are generators or manifesting generators. So it's just, It's so interesting. And I mean, that's what's correct, like that, and then it might shift as we're in this experiment. I might be around a bunch of projectors in 6 months, so it kind of, but it aligns you to the correct geometry that you specifically are on. So it's like, I like to think of it as like if I'm supposed to wait for the invitation, that keeps me lined up on this line that I'm supposed to move through this life and keeps me, successful and not feeling as bitter. And then if I go, well, I want to initiate this thing and I want to penetrate and share my guidance. And then it's almost like pulling the thing off of the geometry. And it's like bumpy over here. Right. And it feels bitter and I get sick and like all these other things. So, following our strategy and authority aligns us back to that smooth line of geometry. And it's like smooth is like, it smooths out your life is what it feels like to me.
Right. And okay. So guys, we've only talked about 2 of the 4 aura types. I do want to get to the next ones, but I cannot not say about the health thing. I keep like, okay, we got to circle back around to that because we are told what to eat, how to do it better. This diet is going to work. This blood type is going to work. This type, this type, this type, this type. And it's so frustrating, especially now where there's, I don't know if you would call it a health crisis, but there's a lot of attention on how you should take care of your body, you know? And I just got such a huge sense of relief when I went deeper into my design to understand that my digestion style is different than what mass media is marketing, than what med school, than what holistic school, than what all of the things. You guys, I have a master's in health psychology, right? Like I studied all of the things. And I like that I studied all of the things. I'm proud of that. But when it came to my personal digestion style, you know, this is different than the aura types, but it takes you deep into it, and the sense of relief that Leisha's describing, that I'm describing, it's just very I don't know, you know, you get to the end of something and you open a door. And for us, this is like a beautiful door that opened, and it starts with understanding your aura type, right? And then it just goes. So we've got manifesting generators, and generators, which are all generators. And then we've got projectors. And now we've got manifestors, correct?
Yes. Yes.
How many percent?
Manifestors? Yeah. It's about 9%.
Okay.
So already we're at, I guess 99, right? They have what's called a closed and repelling aura. Now, it doesn't mean the person is repelling in any way, because I've met manifestors and they're actually very sweet, which, is part of their journey. They're here to know their impact on others with their strong initiating power. So they are here to initiate. However, their strategy is to inform. It's to correctly initiate and to inform what they're going to do. I have a manifestor friend who she posts on Facebook every day oh, we went over to this restaurant and here's what I'm doing today. And I think I'm gonna, open up my schedule for readings, and then that's it. And every day I love knowing there's something about their aura that, they're doing something out there. Like there's almost this feeling. And so when there's an informing, correct manifestor, it feels like, oh, thank God I know that information, I needed that. It's an interesting thing, because their strategy is to inform and to initiate correctly through informing others. And again, so we said generators are here to know themselves, projectors are here to know the other, manifestors are here to know their impact on others through that, correct initiating and informing. They're here, if they do follow their strategy of informing, then they actually will have this feeling of peace. The other side for manifestors, the not self theme is anger, and I'll find a lot of manifestors that are very angry, because they've always been conditioned to be generators, right? Like, work hard, why are you telling me what you're going to do? Like, no, do this. They've always been told what to do. And so it's created this not self theme of anger and hiding themselves, really. So that's a whole journey for manifestors, but they are not here to work like a generator. They also have that, like we talked about, inconsistent life force energy and undefined sacral center. And, they're here to be in peace and to inform and start things right when it's correct. Now, that's only 9% of humanity. We're all conditioned to be manifesting everything in our life, but we don't need to. When we're manifesting probably from our not self, from who we've been conditioned to be, right?
Yes.
Or we're manifesting from, again, we're putting our idea of what should be happening out into the universe. And it's like, well, let's look at what the universe brings, because my one Leisha is not here to figure out everything. Like, who am I to say what should be happening or not for anyone, or for myself, almost. So it's an interesting kind of shift from thinking of manifesting in that way to thinking of manifesting of like, it will manifest correctly when we're operating correct. Then all the things that are supposed to be ours will naturally come. We don't have to do anything to make that happen.
Can you?
It was for me. Yeah.
Can you tell me, or do you know about any manifestors like in leadership that people could maybe identify out in the world, or
Yes. Okay. Well, not that, I mean, Frida Kahlo was a manifester.
Ooh,
Let me think.
sorry to put you
There's a
on the
lot.
spot.
No, there's a lot. And we can actually put maybe some examples, because that is kind
Okay.
of like Obama is a projector.
Okay.
Oprah is a generator.
Okay.
She's here working, working, working. Her best friend, Gail, is a projector. So she's
Oh,
got that kind of guiding friend that can ask the questions when she, obviously Gail's invited in their friendship. Yeah, I mean, projectors, you can see like some not self projectors out there. You know, Kanye West is a projector, and maybe there's some bitterness that we can feel from some of his actions. I think he's brilliant. But and Obama, you can see, from the beginning of his presidencies to the end, you can look at how much that lifestyle, affected him physically, right?
interesting. Yeah.
Because he does look much more tired kind of at the end of that. And that's something a lot of human design communities, we kind of look at some of that stuff. But yes,
There
for a
are,
manifestor, Frida
yeah.
Kahlo, I'll have to think of some other.
Okay.
What were you going to say?
No, I don't know. I lost my mind
Okay.
early because I'm like drinking every word you're saying. But
Love it.
manifestors, right? Like you don't have to be one if you're not one, right?
Exactly. And
Ugh.
it actually will create so much resistance in your life because your aura doesn't work that way. The journey of human design is like you find out what your aura type is, and you're kind of like, ooh, like some of that doesn't feel great because we're in this hardcore programming to be this other thing. But then
Mhm.
but then over the journey you start to go, oh, thank God, like the relief of not having to be that thing you always felt like you had to be, that you really weren't.
Right.
You start to see that more and more, and you're like, I can just be who I am.
So guys, meaning Leisha, did a session for my daughter the other day, and they tolerated my presence basically because I didn't
12 feet
obey
away. No.
I didn't obey the 12 feet away thing. Like I tried to, but anyways, whatever. We had a good time. And what you're saying about like the sense of relief for people our age, in our 40s, is different than people in their teens who haven't had the long-term conditioning that we've had, right? So for that little session, it was really sweet to see my daughter be like, yeah, yep,
Yep.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
already knew that.
Feel that way, and when we're like, ah, she's like, yeah, guys, because she's so much
Clearly.
closer to that purity. And plus, I've done such a great job of mothering. I just couldn't convince her.
Honoring her type automatically.
Right, just boom, just do what to do. Another question I can hear you guys asking out there in your minds is like dating style, right? So like a lot of us are into metaphysical worlds to learn about ourselves, but also about our partnerships, and are we in the correct career? Those are the two questions I get asked the most in my practice: is, am I dating the right person? Am I in the right job? And the answer is always no, because if you have to ask some stranger, then probably not. You know what I mean? But we're never gonna. It doesn't even matter, because this is the journey of the self. Like is it the Patanjali, one of the Yoga Sutras, it says the yoga is the journey of the self to the self through the self, right? And so this is a form of yoga, really. But the idea that I'm getting from you guys out there asking questions is, is my type compatible with this other type? Are we supposed to be together? Are we supposed to interact together? And as you start to follow your experiment, I think that you'll find that it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really work like that. You're just doing your own experiment, stay on your own mat type of a thing. But enjoy the ride too. They talk about in HD a lot about passenger consciousness. And so you're not having to drive the car. Maybe the manifestors are. I don't really know. But the idea here is that you don't have to you can just get in the passenger seat and enjoy what's coming, and then use your unique aura type to respond to the life that's coming to you, right? So I just wanted to point that out, because I feel like before we get to the end of the podcast, like people are going to be wanting to know, like, am I compatible? It's not like Scorpio and Taurus. It's not like that type of a thing. There are some compatibilities, but it's so intricate, right? It's so intricate. And at the end of the day, we're not worried about our compatibility, because that's a whole other third situation. We're starting this journey for ourselves, And if I can know myself better by having a conversation with other people that know themselves really well, then that's like a light up thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's an illuminating factor. Just wanted to throw it out there because I can see what you're thinking, some of you guys.
Can I add to that?
Please.
Just a little. I love that you brought up passenger consciousness, because that is huge. And in it, I just want to share that rest of that analogy to give you the visual real quick, which is the where our being is the passenger. So the driver in this analogy of the car, the driver is our authority, our body's intelligence. And that authority, it knows where we're going on that line of geometry that we can't be aware of, right? Because we don't see everything with our minds, which are limited just to our perspective, which is shown in the activations in the chart as well. So the driver is our authority. The vehicle it's our body, our life. So you can just sit back and you just look out the window. Don't be bothering the driver. Where are we going? We should go over there. Take a right. Do this and that. Then you can't just enjoy the ride, and you don't know all the stuff in front of us. So, it's just, I love that passenger consciousness analogy with the car. And then I also love that you brought up the relationships and jobs and things. And it's like you said, the answer may be yes, it may be no. This brings awareness to the fact that we're different. And so if you do nothing else, even if you never know your partner's type, your kid's type, anything else, encouraging them to trust themselves.
Yes.
Being there for that.
Yes.
Being there for them, knowing their own answer within them, not feeling you need to give them an answer. You don't even need to teach your kids. In fact, they need to teach us, because they're, like Tiffany said, more purely close. They're closer to that pure source of who they are than we are, who have gone through all these defense mechanisms over years and layers and layers and layers of trying to protect ourselves and be what we're not. So it's all about awareness. It's not, projectors shouldn't be with other, projectors, or they should be with generators. It's like it could be correct for any two types to be together that look like they would match or not. There's not like a put the charts together and this is what it should be. It depends. It depends on all the different nuances of how your aura operates. And in your chart, it depends on the other person. It depends on the place in your life. I mean, it depends on so many things. So I love that you brought that in as well.
I'm laughing because that's the answer in beekeeping too. Like, it depends. I'm like, God.
I know. And it's like, no, but I want the predictable thing. It's like, there's not though. I mean, it's like the beautiful irony. Yes. Give me the steps. Of course, we both have our quad left, as you say. Your quad left, I have a left mind, but yes. Which we can also get into later. Okay, so do you want to talk about the last type, or were you?
I do. And before we get to the last type, before we lose, the last type is reflectors. I do want to give you a little bit of housekeeping, guys. Leisha is doing sessions at Wise Skies, so you can book with her at wiseskiescollective.com if this feels correct for you. If you're like, I need to know more about my human design, we have the article and the freebie that we'll link that we talked about. Her special, she's doing mini sessions for $44, which is freaking heard of in the HD world. And so if I can't encourage you enough to just try it out if it feels like slightly interesting to you, because that price is crazy. And thank you, Leisha, because it makes it accessible to people. And that's a big thing in yoga too, like just make it accessible to people and help them on their journey, right? And so that's a huge deal. So November, $44. She's also doing a special foundations class for the membership only, for the Wise Skies membership only. So if you want to be a Wise Skies member, it's $22 a month, magic 22. You can join at wiseskiescollective.com and we can go really deep with her. She's also going to be doing kind of these study groups at a regular pace. And so after you've had your first foundational session, or maybe your first 2 or 3 sessions, and you want to keep studying your design, she's going to offer these ongoing study groups through Wise Skies. So you can always check back with us for the classes that are ongoing. So did I miss anything? That's really kind of what I wanted to make sure that we talked about. All right, so let's talk let's get into the last aura type. Let's talk about the reflectors.
So reflectors are only 1% of humanity. So they're the smallest, obviously the smallest group, very I guess, rare, you would say, right, to meet a reflector. They have a resistant and sampling aura that it's been called like a Teflon aura. Um, and, so I learned all this information and then I met one. So I'll kind of share that. But it sounds so weird. I met one, but in the wild. Yeah, saw one in the wild. Yeah, exactly. But I've met one, and that's what's funny. It's like maybe others are, more reflectors are around them, but one. So they have an interesting. They actually have no centers defined in their body graph, so they obviously are a non-sacral being. They don't have consistent life force, and they need to, not work like a generator. That's still the same. But they are here to almost like what I've learned. It's called, their strategy is called wait a lunar cycle. They're here to know, we said generators know themselves, projectors are here to know the other, manifestors are here to know their impact, reflectors are here to know their environment, like the environment that we're living in. And then they kind of reflect that back. And that's what they're here to kind of to share, right, with humanity. So what I learned is that what they do is they wait a lunar cycle, which allows all the planetary activations, which activate different gates and then therefore centers in combination with our own design. There's different activations from the planets, and they're here to feel out all those different, like they're here to feel what it feels like to be a manifestor when that activation happens. They're here to feel what it is to be a generator. They're here to be projector for those days that's activated in a month. And once they see all of those different perspectives, then that's when they really have an expression of what is happening here. So it's almost like the wisest one, like if I worked on this Human Design magazine recently, and it was all projectors, because we wanted to do this guide thing, and we ended up adding a reflector to the group just because there's like, she would take time to share feedback, but then she would share this like bomb drop kind of thing that none of us could have seen because, of course, we're not sampling all those different activations with all that openness. And you would almost think they'd be very sensitive, but they actually, they have this really strong aura. So when I have a bunch of friends online that are reflectors, and there is a certain feeling there that I can get the resistant sampling thing. And I'm like, oh, that's what that feels like. When I met one in person, it was, and it's nothing the person's doing. It's just how they are. There's kind of almost like what it felt like is, of course, I'm trying to, I'm a projector. I'm going to try to penetrate with invitation, right? So I have to manage that balance. But I also, it's almost like it felt like oracally, I would go like this, and she would kind of also go away that same amount. So it's like I couldn't quite
the finish line kept moving. You were like,
yeah, it's like it then went over here, and I'm like over here. It goes, whoop, Yeah, it was kind of that feeling, and I mean, I loved her. I instantly connected with her, and we chatted. But I just felt that feeling of how that feels, So yeah, and then they're not self-theme as disappointment. So when they wait a lunar cycle and don't hurry to make decisions and hurry to do all these things, then it brings surprise into their life. Like that's their kind of like, ooh, it's surprising. And then if they don't do that, if they work like a generator and do all that, it leads to disappointment. So that's kind of they're not self-theme as disappointment. So that's the 4 types.
That's the 4 types, guys.
The 4 types.
You've got so much juicy stuff in there, and it can be overwhelming. You might want to listen to this several times. We're multidimensional beings. We pick up information in layers. There's so much juicy stuff, but if all you do is figure out your body graph, figure out your aura type, that's such a great place to just start to like melt into. There's so much more. We could talk about specific strategy, specific authority. We could talk about the profiles. We could talk about so much, and we're going to. And that's why we're excited to kind of start these ongoing study groups with Leisha leading. So no matter where you are in your experiment, if you're brand new, if you've been experimenting for a long time, all hearts are always welcome in all of our activities. We like to learn from each other. So there's that too. Like you're bringing something to the table here. It's not just like the guru teaching all the stuff. There are almost every day that I text Leisha, I'm like, oh, I had this crazy dream about a wolf that was gnawing at the back of my skull. And she's like, what? And I'm like, isn't that kind of normal? And she's like, no, that's an HD thing. And I'm like, so I guess my whole life is that now. But the wolf thing, right? Like I will totally tell you guys about my crazy wolf dream, but Leisha's like, can you tell us just briefly, like, what's the wolf symbology thing going on?
Yeah. Well, in human design, it's you know, it's for the strong, honestly. Like this is a satisfying, peaceful, surprising, and leads to success type of journey. But it doesn't mean it's easy, right? I mean, it's simple but not easy.
Simple,
And there's
but
a
not
lot,
easy.
yeah.
Sorry.
And there's a lot of different points to it and a lot of challenges with deconditioning as you see things differently and as things start to shift. So it's for the strong, the resilient. It's for wolf. It's for wolf. It's for like the wolves, right? I mean, it's not for sheep. The sheep is kind of the homogenized, like we all need to do the same thing and it'll work for all of us. Like we need to eat vegan and, you know, it's like, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Like it's different for each person. And so it's for wolves. And so that when she said like, oh, I randomly had this dream about this wolf, and it's like she said never dreamed about wolves before or anything like that. And I was just like, whoa, like you're something got in there with that concept, you know, with that specific animal's representation of being resilient and strong and just going after it, you know.
And you know what, like I'm like chill bumps again. Like another cool part of that dream, just to share, it had to do with the fact that wildlife management was knocking at the door. Like usually it's the wolf knocking at the door, right? No, the wolf was like in my brain. And wildlife management was like, we need to put the wolf down. We need to kill that wolf. You need to let us in to kill it. And I was like, hell no, you're not. You know, like I wasn't gonna let that happen. Not because I was protecting the wolf. That was not literally. It's like if you can imagine what a bear attack, like your worst bear attack, right? You guys that follow me know that I have like a recurring bear dream. It's like that intensity that can go with that largest possible fear. That's what was happening in my dream with wolf, right? And so the fact that I was protecting the wolf, that was really in Leisha's words, like helping kind of, what did you say? Like get
like
out.
Just maybe, yeah. What did I do? You remember?
Well, it was like something about like the grunge or the, like you're clearing away the
gnawing
stuff.
away. Yeah.
The stuff that's
At
not
the
me,
conditioning.
the not self, right? The conditioning. So just very interesting things have started to happen on my journey. And I love Wise Skies because it provides such cool people like Leisha and such cool resources like HD. And if this one's for you, we can't wait to play in this arena with you. So there's many things to explore at wiseskiescollective.com. And if this one's for you, I just wanted to introduce you to my sweet friend Leisha, who is leading such a cool experiment. She's really practicing it in her life, you know, like there's astrology and there's astrologers, like there's doctors and there's doctors, and she's somebody who really walks this path. And that's why I feel so confident and comfortable sharing her with you guys, you know.
Yeah.
So I see her do it, and I'm just so in awe of this process. And thank you, Leisha, for your time this morning. We wanted to get together to do this together because we're buddies, but I think the Zoom worked out better because we're 12 feet away from each other.
You can speak as yourself. I can speak as myself because
right.
Yeah, I mean, and when we are specific connection, which creates again a whole other kind of being, right? Mm-hmm. Is like our thing together, is really awesome, and it just brings out so many cool concepts that like she'll say something or I'll say something and we're like, oh my god, that cool thing just came out. It's almost like the through us kind of thing. When you're correct, it just your expression that is meant to touch others is there, you know, without trying or planning or anything. So I love being in this with you. Yeah.
Yes, you too. Like, what was the thing yesterday? Like, I was at the grocery store and the song was playing. What did you say?
Something with earth. We were talking about like the earth thing.
Yeah.
And I'll have to look back.
We were talking about the earth and how it was like, how things were really changing quickly, right? And she's texting me about this. I'm in the grocery store and it's like that. I feel the earth move under my feet. Freaking came on the radio, like while she's talking at me. I'm like, what channel am I on right now? You know, it's just so many synchronicities, like all the stuff that we love to experience is magic, you know. So anyways, I'm your biggest cheerleader right now, and thank you so much. And guys, thank you for listening to us, guys. Until we can hang out together again or do sessions together, we really appreciate your presence being here, and namaste.
Namaste.